I'm here this afternoon with Jonathan Saenz.
Correct.
With Texas Values. Jonathan, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Give my listeners a little bit of background about what Texas Values does.
Sure. Texas Values is the largest statewide organization that focuses on the issues of faith, family, and freedom. So you'll see us involved in court cases, you'll see us involved in policy issues at the Capitol, you'll see us involved in issues in local communities, as people have seen in San Antonio, in Houston and Plano. You also see us doing a lot of work in media. So oftentimes we'll be asked to give our expert advice on certain issues that affect religious liberty, marriage and family, and also the issue of unborn children and protecting life. And so I'm a lawyer myself, and so I've worked on court cases, I've helped draft legislation, I've also worked on issues related to elections, and we have a voter's guide that one of our organizations puts together as well to educate people about candidate issues, and so a variety of things that Texans care about. So when you talk about issues of faith, family, and freedom, those are Texas values, and I don't just say that because that's the name of our organization. Very
well said. You brought up Houston. You know, since the last legislative session, and we've just started the 84th, a lot of things have been going on.
Sure.
Can you kind of bring everybody up to speed on what the current status is with the situation in Houston?
Well, there are two issues that center around what's happening in the city of Houston. And it's really about just another one of the attacks on religious freedom, and also another example of an executive that is operating way outside of their bounds and not being responsible to the people. So just for one example, there's an ordinance that's been passed in the city of Houston but not being enforced that has a negative impact on religious freedom rights. And so that is being pushed by the mayor there, and Mayor of Houston, Anise Parker, we know she did something very drastic last year. And she said that she was going to subpoena the sermons of pastors because they dared speak about what the Bible says about issues of sexuality, and particularly as it relates to marriage. Not only has she done that, but she's violated state law by recognizing couples and saying that they're married if they're from another state. That violates Texas law. And so I think it's widely known that Anise Parker's a lesbian herself. She got a same-sex marriage from the state of California, then came back to Texas. And so she's now trying to import those California values into Texas. But that's not our law. And so you have yet another executive that's trying to take the law in her own hands. And so right now the mayor's involved in a lawsuit that our organization has been spearheading to try to defend our state laws, because these laws are passed and we did it the right way and they should be enforced. And so if for some reason the law should change, well, that's a different story. But the law has not changed, and that's up to the will of the people. That's not unelected judges that should try to strike down our laws. And so currently marriage laws in Texas are enforceable, and that applies to the mayor herself. And so those are the two things that we see happening. As a matter of fact, today as we're recording this, a trial starts in Houston on this issue of this anti-religious freedom ordinance that the mayor's pushed forward that gives men that dress up as women access to bathrooms with little girls and things of that nature. And so, but the lawsuit is about whether or not there's enough valid signatures. And the answer to that question is there are. There's almost 3 times the amount of signatures necessary, but you've got people in the mayor's office that got involved in the process when they shouldn't have, in an inappropriate way, and they have tried to throw out thousands of signatures because they know that the people have spoken loud and clear. And so that's what's troubling. What's happening in Houston is the mayor has taken the law in her own hands, and she doesn't want to listen to what the people want.
Didn't I believe the city clerk validate that the signatures were valid?
Yeah, that's correct. So the process for repealing an ordinance like the one that was passed in Houston is the people in the city have about 30 days to get signatures and then submit those to the city secretary. Well, that's what happened. And the city secretary actually put a letter out saying that there were enough valid signatures. And so she didn't even bother counting the rest of them. She counted about 19,000 of the over 51,000 that were submitted, when only about 17,300 were necessary to force this issue to either be repealed or to go on the ballot to let the people vote. And so, but that's when the mayor's office got involved, and the city attorney, who has now resigned, got involved in the process and said, oh, no, hold on a second. We're going to do our own count. And we say there are not enough valid signatures. And so there are enough valid signatures, and that's what's going to be shown in this trial that's starting today.
Excellent. I understand we've got a like-kind situation now in Plano. What's going on in Plano?
Yeah, so the Houston issue's been going on for about 9 months. Plano started back in December, about a month and a half ago, and really happened very quickly. It started in December, an ordinance very similar to the one in Houston, dealing with the issue of transgender bathrooms, dealing with the issue of the government having now a weapon to punish people of faith who just want to run their business the right way. The Supreme Court has already said in Hobby Lobby that private business owners have a right to decide based on their biblical or their faith beliefs how to run their business, and the government shouldn't be interfering with that. And so we know there's precedent there, but Plano pushed this ordinance anyway and really didn't give people a lot of notice. I think a day and a half before people were hearing about it, and all of a sudden they had a hearing and they had a vote and it was passed. In Houston and San Antonio, you had different hearings over a series of months, even though it didn't take that long. This one in Plano, no question, was fast-tracked. And so during the Christmas time, the process of getting signatures started, very difficult, as you can imagine, during that time of year. But they got the right attention that they needed to, and they got enough signatures. And now where we are, almost twice as many signatures necessary in Plano to repeal this same type of ordinance are being counted by the city, and I think we're going to hear something by the end of January. And so we'll know a little bit more, but there's an election in May locally. And so if everything goes the way it should, you're going to see that issue on the ballot in May.
Are there any other cities that you're aware of considering this type of an ordinance?
Well, I know San Antonio has already passed this type of ordinance, and they tried to get enough signatures and tried to repeal elected officials on this issue, but they weren't successful. And so it wouldn't surprise me if we see other cities in the state trying to do this, and that's because you've got a group called the Human Rights Campaign and others like them they want the advancement of redefining marriage, they want to redefine sexuality, they want to change our laws at the local level and not respect what we've done at the state level. And so they're very dangerous, and they strike at very fundamental principles of religious freedom and really the will of the people. And so who knows where they may pop up. I mean, Plano came up within a day or two, people knew about it, and all of a sudden they were passing it. So we have to be very careful and keep our eyes open on that issue. But you know, it is a concern because it's about the issues of marriage, which we've already defined in law. It's about something as fundamental as the First Amendment, our religious freedom rights. But it also is about the role of the people. In a lot of these cities are sending the message that they're not interested in what the people think and they want them shut out of the process. And so that's one thing that is redeeming. Even though it takes a lot of effort, if these issues go to the ballot, it gives the people a chance to speak.
What can citizens do to be proactive so this doesn't come into their community? Are there some specific things?
Well, I think it's important for people to stay educated on what's happening in their community, but also through the state. We have a website, txvalues.org. We also have a website where we get more involved in passing things or having people involved locally. That's txvaluesaction.org, where people can get a little bit more involved on those issues. And so that's the thing to do, is to stay up to date. People can receive our emails. But talk to your people in your community. Talk to the people, your faith leaders. Talk to your neighbors, and just stay up to date on what's happening. And there's a lot of stuff happening during the legislative session. There's a lot of discussion about the other side really trying to trying to changes statewide, where they run over our religious freedom rights, and they start changing laws like birth certificates, not allowing birth certificates to say mother and father, but to say parent 1 and parent 2, and things of that nature. And so during the legislative session, I think it's important for people to stay engaged, because you know, by the time we get to May, things can happen very quickly on these issues.
Are there any particular proposed bills that you've seen that are concerning to you?
Well, there's a whole lot out there that we're concerned about. I mentioned the one about the birth certificate issue. There's certainly laws that are being proposed to redefine marriage, to repeal our marriage laws. They typically hadn't been able to get any support in the past, but we're going to see a lot of attention on that issue. And I think it's important for people to be confident they have the law on their side, and they also have history on their side, and they have logic on their side, not to mention the biology when it comes to the issue of marriage. And so I think people should be encouraged about the impact that it has on society in a positive way when a mother and a father come together and create a natural child. It's a wonderful thing, and there's a reason why that's been the gold standard for our society, decade after decade, studies coming out showing the benefit of that. Otherwise, the state wouldn't get involved in marriage at all. And so, but it is an issue that touches so many things. If we redefine marriage, and open it up to whatever people want to think about, some type of arrangement that they have an emotional connection to with one person or multiple people, as we're seeing happen in Massachusetts already. Where do you draw the line? Can we not have any boundaries or limitations when it comes to the issue of marriage. And so we have to be very careful. I know I read an article that when the Defense of Marriage Act, which defined marriage at the federal level as between one man and one woman, when that law was struck down by the Supreme Court, there were over 1,200 areas of law and policy that were impacted by that one decision. And so when people ask, if how does this affect you, it affects all of us. It affects other areas of law. It affects societies. And particularly when you talk about redefining marriage and sexuality, which can lead to men entering women's bathrooms if they dress up as a woman, that affects all of our safety when it comes to our children.
If our viewers would like more information, you mentioned your website, can they get on your email list? Because I understand you send out regular email alerts as to what's going on. Is that doable through the website?
That's right. So there's a link on the website, and you can also send an email to info@txvalues.org is an email address we have that people can connect with us directly. And so, I'm fifth generation Texan. I've lived in this state a long time. My family has been a part of the state for a long time. And so what happens in Texas is extremely important. What's happening right now, there's a lot of people that are aggressively attacking our state. They're attacking the values of faith, family, and freedom. And there's no question they think they're within striking distance. And so I think the elections that we saw last year in November with people like Greg Abbott, who's now the governor, Dan Patrick, who's the lieutenant governor, who are very strong supporters of our marriage laws and our issues of faith and family, I think is representative of what the people throughout the state of Texas want. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't see some dramatic changes at the local level or at the state level that could undermine so many of these great principles.
Our former governor, Rick Perry, was very successful in having lots of people move to Texas from other states like California and other places. Are you seeing an impact of that flow from that diversity coming in here, making it a little more challenging to hold what we have held as Texas values?
Sure. We have, for 10 years, Texas has been the best place to do business. I mean, that's what we've been rated. And so you really can't take one without the other. You can't say that our economic success has nothing to do with the type of issues that we support when it comes to fundamental values like faith, family, and freedom. And so, we're one of the most pro-life states. You've seen sometimes when people attack our religious freedom, we take it very seriously. I mean, our current governor, Greg Abbott, argued the Texas Ten Commandments case at the U.S. Supreme Court. But that doesn't mean that we're not seeing challenges like we are in Houston with the mayor trying to subpoena the sermons of pastor to directly go into the pulpit and try to say that the government can get at that information and try to intimidate people to say something different. That is very concerning, and we're seeing a lot of things happen at the local level. Whether or not that's a result of new people moving to our state, I guess that's anyone's opinion, but we're certainly seeing more attacks on issues of marriage, on issues of religious freedom. But the great thing is we've got 254 counties in our state. We're a collection of people throughout the state. And when you get those type of issues together at the statewide level, these type of values typically prevail. And so, but I don't think there's any time for us to take anything for granted, because there is a battle going on right now. There is a tug of war on these issues. And if we sit back and just think that everything's going to be okay, we're going to wake up the next day with a huge surprise.
I appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you so much, Jonathan Saenz.
God bless you.
Thank you.